So now we come to chapter 16, the final chapter, big chapter in our study this semester in Greek 2. You'll be glad to know that we are approaching the end of, or the top of the hill, as it were, in the material we need to learn in Greek 2. The subjunctive mood in chapter 16 is a very important one, a very common one. And it's important that we, first of all, grasp the forms that the subjunctive mood takes. And then next week, we will talk about the 10 major usages of the subjunctive mood, how it is used in sentences. So let's look at the subjunctive mood itself. I'll refer you, of course, to your textbook and to the discussion there in chapter 16.1. Dr. McIver has given us a good summary here, and especially how he compares the different tenses and the subjunctive mood as it appears in the different endings. Notice that with the present, indicative, subjunctive, indicative, and subjunctive, luo and luo look the same. And in a sentence in the Greek New Testament, it's often a question, is this a subjunctive or not? Because especially with a form like this, where it could be either one, the ending for both the subjunctive and the indicative are the same. Luo and luo. Not the case with the second person singular, then we change. What happens in the subjunctive is that the endings we say lengthen. O is already long, omega, so omega cannot be lengthened any further. It stays omega. But ace becomes ace with eta instead of epsilon iota. And notice the iota subscript should be there, must be there. Lue, that we learned in Greek 1, becomes lue with eta, again with the iota subscript. And luomen becomes luomen in the subjunctive. Lueta, lueta. Luusin becomes luosin with omega. We should go ahead, even though it wasn't on your list for this week, and go over the middle and passive forms of the present and the subjunctive, since they are in your textbook so close together. Using the verb dechomai, I agree, I welcome. Dechomai, and the subjunctive dechomai. And notice here there's no confusion because the middle and passive endings, omai, e, etai, ometha, estha, ontai, all lengthen to omai, e, etai, ometha, estha, ontai. So they're easy. There's really not a whole lot of difference. It's just that this initial vowel in each case lengthens. With the aorist indicative and the aorist subjunctive, again, there is not a great difficulty because the aorist subjunctive endings are the same as the present subjunctive endings, at least in the active voice. So instead of elusa becoming something else, elus, I don't know, lengthening to, well, alpha would have to lengthen to omega. That's as far as it can lengthen, as far as a vowel is concerned. And this would have to become os or something, but that's not the way it works. Notice in the subjunctive, the augment drops out because the augment is only found in the indicative mode. It is not found in the subjunctive mode. It does not necessarily, the subjunctive does not necessarily indicate past time. It does not necessarily tell us when or what time, was it past or present or future, something took place more it tells us the kind of action. Was it a one-time occurrence, or was it a continuous occurrence? That's oversimplifying, but that could be the difference between the present subjunctive, continuous, progressive, and the aorist subjunctive. Notice the strong aorist subjunctive, again, the initial augment in the aorist tense drops off because we don't have it outside of the indicative mode. And the subjunctive endings are again the same. O, ace, a, omen, eta, osen. But notice we have lab, the aorist stem, so that we know this is an aorist and not a present tense, not lambano, subjunctive, present subjunctive, but labo, aorist subjunctive of the verb lambano. Aorist stem, lab. Be the same with balo. It too is a strong aorist. It would become bal with one lambda instead of two in the aorist stem. Go down and look at the comparisons again of the present indicative active, the present subjunctive active, the aorist indicative active, and the aorist subjunctive active. Again, each time noticing that in the subjunctive, the endings are lengthened. In the aorist subjunctive, the augment is dropped. So we still have blepso because we have a sigma added. We have an aorist stem. Somehow we have to show that there's an aorist stem, either a second aorist or a first aorist with adding sigma. But there is no augment in the aorist subjunctive. So you can go through these examples of several different verbs and note how the subjunctive, present tense, aorist tense, is different from the indicative. Compare the aorist indicative active with the aorist subjunctive active. Notice again, the augment's dropped off with the subjunctive because the subjunctive, outside of the indicative mode, we have no sure past tense. Now the context may show that it's past tense, but the verb form itself does not show past tense unless it has an augment. We need to learn the subjunctive of Amy, O, ace, a, omen, eta, osen, but these are the same as the endings of the subjunctive. So we're really not highly challenged here in chapter 16. The challenge will come in talking about the way the subjunctive is used, which we will do next week. Right now, we want to concentrate simply on learning those endings and combining them with the verbs. So let's look at that again from a different perspective. And we'll use this presentation to do so. All right, I believe that I forgot to share my screen. So I need to do that. When we talk about mode or mood, sorry, I learned to pronounce this grammatical term as mode and not mood, but I've since had to learn better that most grammarians do say mood. So you'll hear me saying mode and mood. But it is not so much about your mood today. It's about how the author is expressing himself or herself. Mood basically tells us what kind of statement we are making. Are we stating a fact, asking a question, giving information, the normal means of communication, These would be what we call the indicative mood. I hit John. It's a simple statement. Did you hit John? Question. Still basically a simple statement put in the form of a question. But if I'm not just stating facts, I might be, for example, completing a verb expression using an infinitive. I am able to hit John. And now suddenly to hit is not in the indicative mood, it's an infinitive. And we classify this as a separate mood. You don't realize it, but now you are actually learning your fourth mood because we've already learned infinitives. And I'm trying to think, we've also, perhaps this is our third. We'll get there in just a moment, whether it's 3 or 4. The subjunctive mood is expressing probability, or we can say also it's expressing purpose. It has a variety of usages, and it's hard to define it all in one sentence. But basically, the subjunctive is the mood of probability, possibility, potentiality. I might, I could, I would, and so forth. We do the same in English, except we provide the word would, could, should, might. Those are all uses in English of the subjunctive, and we have similar uses in Greek. I could hit John if I get angry enough. I could. I might hit John if he doesn't stop hitting me. That has a conditional statement attached to it if he doesn't stop. But again, you're expressing probability, or it could be purpose. In order, I am hitting John in order to keep him away from me. In order, that would be followed by a subjunctive verb in the Greek New Testament. You would have a word like hinna, or hapos, or another word that indicates in order that, hoti sometimes, that, in order that, purpose, and then a verb in the subjunctive mood, in order that he should do something. There's another mood called the optative, which we will not learn because in the period of the New Testament that we are learning, the optative was dropping out of use and the subjunctive was taking its place. In Greek 4, we learned the imperative, which is the one that we use, the mood we use to give commands or to make requests. I will do this. You will do this. You shall do this. If I'm commanding someone to do something. Then we will have what we call participles in chapter 20, which is also classified as a mood, although grammarians differ over whether it should be classified that way, but it's easiest if we do. So we have now our third mood, sorry. The second one was the infinitive, and the third one, the fourth one is the participle in chapter 20, but we don't get there this semester. So I was right with 3. Our third mood, the subjunctive mood. Again, I can't stress enough the augment, epsilon or eta, sometimes the epsilon lengthens to eta, as we've discovered, is only used in the indicative mood and indicates past time. So we will not have augments with the aorist tense in the subjunctive mood. We've noticed that already in looking at the textbook and comparing the present with the present indicative with the present, with the aorist indicative with the aorist subjunctive, that the augment drops off when it's subjunctive. Make a note of it. keep it in your minds. You need to learn this. The subjunctive mood does not take an augment. So you cannot put an augment and then put the subjunctive endings. Here are the present tense subjunctive endings: luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete, luosen. In each case, the vowel of the main vowel of the ending has lengthened to something different. This omega cannot lengthen any further, we said, so it remains o, luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete, luosen. In the aorist tense and in the strong aorist, we have to watch out that we have the aorist stem, loose or lob in the case of lombato, second aorist, or strong aorist, and weak aorist. Again, the endings are the same: o, 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 omega, omega, omega. It's just the stem that shows us, this is aorist. There is no augment. Again, in the subjunctive, there is no augment. So look, in each case, we see that we are using the lengthened endings, not o, ace, a, omen, eta, usi, but o, ace, a, omen, eta, osen. And we're adding those in the aorist stem in the case of the aorist tense, we've added the subjunctive endings to the aorist stem, but there's no augment at the beginning. Or here, in the case of the strong aorist, lob, the stem is lob. The stem for bala would be bal with one lambda. And we would see immediately this is aorist. And the endings are the subjunctive. We do have middle and passive, especially with what we call deponent verbs. And we already said, again, the vowel lengthens. So omai e etai ometha estha ontai lengthens to omai e etai ometha estha ontai. Very simple when you think about it. The subjunctive endings are simply have vowels that are lengthened. You do have a new vocabulary to learn. That is probably, along with the uses of the subjunctive, the main challenges we have. And I urge you strongly to learn the vocabulary this week in week 10, because next week in week 11, we will concentrate on the uses. And you will really need to concentrate then that you get all of these 10 uses and can describe them, understand them. The forms are fairly easy to grasp, but how the subjunctive may be used in a sentence, that is very important, and also needs to be memorized and learned and recognized. There are several words, and they are listed for you in your vocabulary, in vocabulary list 16 at the end of chapter 16. So for V16, you need to learn these words and learn them well. V16, coming just before exercise 16, the end of chapter 16. Hos on or hos on, whoever, or yes, whoever. Notice who and on. On is a typical particle that's added in the subjunctive mood and tells us that a verb is coming in the subjunctive. Who added to hos, it becomes whoever. And then we will have a verb in the subjunctive. Whoever throws, whoever goes, whoever believes. Pistuo then would have a subjunctive ending in that case. Pistue, for example, hos on pistue, whoever believes. Notice the potentiality, the possibility of believing that's expressed by the subjunctive mood. Hot on, whenever. Notice again, we have hoti plus on to get this, or actually hote, when, the adverb when with the particle on becomes whenever. Whenever someone believes. Hoton, tis, someone, pistue, a. Notice I'm saying pistue, a. Lengthened, yes. Third person singular. Whenever someone, tis, certain one or someone believes, pistue, with a subjunctive ending. Whenever. Of one another, alone. Now notice the genitive plural. This is not necessarily a subjunctive word, but it is very common, so we need to learn it now. Alelon, of one another. Genitive case. Notice the genitive plural here, ending. Of one another. The verb anoigo means I open, and the aorist tense will be quite different. A noiksa. But when you think about it, you realize what's happened is in the aorist indicative, we're talking about the indicative, remember here, when we have an augment. The alpha, when the augment comes, epsilon, it lengthens to eta. So it's a noik, and gamma combines with sigma to become xi. So we don't have enogs, we have enoixa, and the ending is the aorist indicative ending. Now remember, if you put this in the subjunctive, you drop the augment and you have noixo, because you have to have the aorist stem with the subjunctive endings. Ekinos, we've had hutos, haute, tuto, this one, this and these, and now we have the far demonstrative pronoun, ekinos, that and those. Hutos and hutoi, this and these, ekinos, ekinoi. Actually, the endings here are a little easier to learn with ekinos. That one. We call this the far demonstrative pronoun. This and that. These and those. Near and far. We have also three forms of mine, my and mine, possessive pronoun. Emos, eme, emon, masculine, feminine, and neuter. These appear and mean just basically my, but they are a stronger, more stressing the point than the simple form mu, for example. Emos, eme, emon is saying mine, mine. Usually there's a more emphasis there. Exo, outside, outer. Keruso, I proclaim, I preach, I announce. Keruso, a very common verb in the New Testament, of course. The aorist, ekeruksa. The sigma has changed to xi. The verb has changed, and we have to memorize the aorist form. I proclaim. The indicative, aorist indicative, I proclaimed, ekeruksa. Krino is what we call a liquid verb because it ends in nu. The stem ends in nu. And that means that in the aorist tense, the stem will change because liquid verbs that end in lambda, nu, or mu do not like sigma. They refuse to take it. And what they do is they change their stem. The aorist becomes ekrena. So I forgot this one. But a verb like meno, I remain or I stay, becomes emina with epsilon iota. The stem changes in the aorist. Meta, with the genitive with and with the accusative after or behind a new preposition. This word ophthalmos should cause us no problem. When we go to the eye doctor, we often go to an ophthalmologist, and that's where it comes from the Greek for the word for eye, ophthalmos. It's a second declension, easy to learn. Ophthalmos, masculine word like logos, ends in os, the genitive u, ho. Peri is another preposition where the genitive means with the accusative about or concerning it. Peri is around, basically. So the perimeter around the space. Peri, with the accusative concerning, about. Pino means I drink. It has a second aorist, a strong aorist, epion, I drank. So notice the ending is aorist, second aorist or strong aorist. Not alpha, but on, s, in, omen, ete, on. I drank, he drank, you drank, he, she, it drank, and so forth. Che is usually not translated, but it could be and this and that, or te, as this, so this, or not only, but also. Chronos is also masculine and second declension noun like logos. Chronos means time. Not the same usually in meaning as the word kairos, which is the opportunity. Grasp, seize the opportunity would be kairos. Taking time, chronos would mean actually literal time. An hour, 2 hours. Hode, here. Hora, hour or time. It's used in both ways. Jesus also often talks about his hour, his hora. My hour has not yet come, meaning the time for my crucifixion, for my suffering, is not yet come. So let's review the subjunctive mood and its usage. The present indicative active is simply a lengthening of the vowel. Luo stays the same, but lues becomes eta with iota subscript, lues. And as we go down again, the epsilon lengthens to eta. The strong aorist subjunctive endings, notice in the subjunctive mood. Sorry, my mouse is stuck for some reason. Not sure what's happened here. Okay, go back, share the screen again. keep stressing this. I can't stress this enough. The aorist indicative, which we have learned so far, I took, elabon, becomes labo, I might take. I could take. Depends on the context, whether it's might or could or would or should, or it might be simply used as a purpose statement. In order that I should take, in order that I might take, in order that I take. Depending on the context, we might translate it different ways. And you're already beginning to hear that when we get into translation, things are not always straightforward. It's not easy to say, is it this or is it that? And sometimes one translation might be acceptable, or one or two or three different translations might be acceptable. After all, we have many English translations because there's never one-to-one equivalent between languages. So whether it's I might take or I should take will depend on the context, will depend on other factors, and we will talk about those next week. Elabon, strong aorist, but it's make sure that it's the aorist stem with the subjunctive endings, labo. No augment in the subjunctive mood. Remember that, no augment. Poru omai becomes poru omai. Omai, etai, ometha, esta, ontai. And notice that whereas in the active voice, we had o, and we could be confused because both are the same. In the passive, middle and passive present, we have a, eta in the second person singular. So these could be confused. So we don't know if this verb, if this appears in the New Testament, if this is indicative or subjunctive, because they both look the same. The context will make it clear whether it's subjunctive or not. And again, the aorist subjunctive endings are without the augment. The endings are the same. The stem is aorist and the augment drops out. Same is true of the deponent verbs like dechomai. Notice that we have dex, the aorist stem, with the chi joining with sigma to become xi, and the endings are still omai, etai, ometha, ista, ontai, in the deponent verbs, which are middle and passive endings. The verb, this vowel has lengthened. We're not going to take time right now to, well, we can take this one because it shows us actually the use of an infinitive, which we really haven't gone into much or talked about at all. In fact, we will probably save the use of the infinitive pretty much until Greek 3. The God of hope, ha de theos tes elpidos. Notice elpis is here in the genitive case, elpidos. The God of hope, give to you, ta pneuma, the spirit of all joy, charas, all again in the genitive, all joy, pasapan, but here in the feminine genitive, because it's modifying charas in the genitive case. All joy and peace in believing, not in the to believe. This is an infinitive, but we can't translate it literally in the to believe. we have to recognize, for one thing, this is a present infinitive, not an aorist. So the sense is probably progressive. So I will probably translate in believing. The God of hope give to you a spirit of all joy and peace in believing. And the infinitive here is used as a noun, basically. It's the object of a preposition. Could be used as a direct object. An infinitive could be used as a subject. It is in English. To believe or not to believe? That's the question. To believe. An infinitive can be used as a subject. Can be used as an object, direct object. But here in this case, it's used as the object of a preposition. In believing. We would translate, because we have no other way of expressing this infinitive in English. We cannot say in the to believe. We don't use that. We don't say that in English. So we have to say in the believing. In believing. Joy and peace in believing. Oh, that's one use of the infinitive, which we talked about last week a little bit. And we'll do more of that. Next week, we need to talk about actually first the use of the subjunctive, which we're learning the forms this week. Next week, we'll learn the endings. God bless you and help you as you do your homework for this week.